I'm joined here today by Alex Morono, coming off the big victory over Max Griffin this past weekend at UFC Tampa. What's up, man? How are you?
Good, good. Man, other than just this bruise on my lip, I had no damage from the fight. My eye was actually, I got poked in the first. But other than that, man, I'm feeling awesome. I'm actually ready to go train in the next couple days.
For sure. You mentioned the damage and the things on your lip. Does that hurt? I mean, can you feel it at all?
No. It showed up like 2 days after the fight. It was just from one of the right hands.
Okay, so I guess
I
it's
didn't
just
even know.
just a bruise or something.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about the fight a little bit. Obviously, it was a great performance, but first things first, I believe you did your camp at Fortis, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the secret to all these fighters that are going to Fortis? They're having these really great performances. What's going on over at Fortis that's delivering such great performances from its fighters?
There's gonna be like 12 guys on the UFC roster who all train there, and so the training partners are the best in the world. But also, it's our coach, Coach Safe. He's the best coach in the world, and just the training's extraordinarily intelligent, but very hard, and there's a lot of purpose behind it, and man, just the results are showing too. It's awesome.
And Coach Safe, like you were saying, obviously he's a great coach. But I think one of the things he was saying, I think it was on a podcast, that his style's a little bit different. Like he's not your friend, he's not your parent or something like that. He has a very harsh approach. How is it having a coach that has sort of that different kind of approach?
Man, it's great. I actually have not experienced that before, and I'm more afraid of the backlash for the next training camp if I lose a fight. I know the training would be way harder, but because of that. So it's just nice having that accountability. There's more than just losing. For myself now, I represent the team, so there's a lot more pressure, but it's like rightfully so there, and it gives me a lot of pride. Stepping into the octagon just gives me more reasons to win more than anything else.
And is that the right style of coaching for you? We know some guys, they kind of, even if they're losing the fight, they need to be told they're winning. I assume this one, you're not being told you're winning if you're losing. Is that the right style for you?
Yeah, so I always liked like a really tactical approach. I like to know the information that's in front of me. And in the past, I actually wouldn't know if I would have won or lost rounds. And on this fight, I was pretty aware of what was going on.
And so this fight against Max, obviously great performance. Like we mentioned, you won, I believe, 29-28, 29-27. How do you look back at your performance? I don't know if you had a chance to go back and watch it yet.
Yeah, I've seen the fight a couple times. Man, I loved it. The first round was close, but I definitely landed more strikes. I threw a lot more than he did, and I landed, I think, maybe like 15 strikes more. And I actually felt like I was ahead in the first round. And then I knew in the second round, I can't believe I couldn't finish him with those strikes. That head kick landed flush. Like 5 knees landed right on his chin. The back fist landed flush. And he was just hard to put away. But I figured that was a 10-8 round as well. And then the third, he turned on the wrestling, but I was very comfortable grappling, and I thought it was strange he shot in so much considering how he had to finish, and so I didn't mind just kind of fighting defensive in those moments and making sure I didn't caught with anything stupid, and was able to get back up to my feet instantly. Even though he scored with the takedowns, he did no damage and held no position, so I was happy with that performance.
And a lot of guys, when they're trying to finish someone like the way you did, they have to avoid that adrenaline dump, putting everything into trying to get the finish. What's going on mentally when you're telling yourself, do you have to hold back to make sure you don't put everything out there? Do you try to put everything out there? I mean, what's going on mentally?
Yeah, I tried to finish. I didn't even think about pacing. I knew he was hurt, and I just put everything into it. And again, man, he was saved by the bell. I'd have kept that same volume and that same pressure until he was out. And it did get me a little bit tired, but I had some time to recover in between rounds. And I'll tell you, props to Max. He recovered well. He came out that third round still sharp and coming forward, and it didn't seem like he was very phased. And, man, I had never been hit with anything like I hit him with, and man, his recovery was really solid.
And so what does that do mentally when you think you're like seconds away from finishing the fight and then he manages to, like you mentioned, get saved by the bell? What does that do for you mentally when you thought you were just about to finish it?
I planned to do damage and not necessarily look for any specific finish. So I was just happy to have done as much damage in that round and get a couple get the knockdown and a couple big shots. So if anything, I knew it was just going towards the greater good of the goal. And it was a bummer to not get the finish. But normally I would be like, man, I should have done this or could have done that. But everything I threw at him landed flush, and they were hard shots, and he was just able to absorb them. So there's nothing really I could have done extra.
And we know, like you mentioned, your coaches have a very straightforward style, very tactical and everything. What did they tell you after the fight? I mean, what sort of feedback did you get afterwards?
Coach Safe, he expects us to lose as no round. So he was very critical on the third round, of which I agreed. I played it a little bit safe, mostly just to not get hit with anything stupid. I was hoping we would have stayed standing more, but was definitely down to grapple with him. I didn't spend much time on the ground, but I know I was able to throw up like an arm bar, and was able to get to my feet very quickly, which has been easy now after training at Fortis so much. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of good to take away from that fight, and then again, thankfully, especially after watching, Mike Perry's fight against Vicente, there's some serious damage fighters can sustain in these fights, and I was very happy to get the win, go all 3 rounds, and again take almost no damage. Like I'm going in to teach my classes tonight. I'll be in training probably Thursday or Friday, so I'm happy to get right back on it.
And you mentioned that Luque versus Perry fight. As a fighter, I mean, I'm sure you're aware of the damage you can take, but when you see Mike Perry get up and his nose, one part is going left, the other part is going right, does that make you doubt? I don't want to say doubt, but does that make you think twice about what you're doing out there in the cage when you see damage like that?
No, not necessarily. If anything, it kind of puts like the financials in perspective. And again, I'm not complaining. I love how much I'm getting paid in the UFC. But he lost that fight, and was it really worth it? And if anything, it just shows me how important it is for me to practice and continue to get better to make sure I can avoid taking damage like that. And so far throughout my career, it's been very successful.
For sure. And was this your first fight with Fortis, or had you been with Fortis beforehand?
No, this was my 3rd fight camp with him,
Oh, okay.
and I'm 3-0. Yeah, my first true fight camp was when I fought Keenan Song in China, but he couldn't make the trip all the way to China that week. So I went and represented, got fight of the night, won that fight. Then I fought Zach Otto, and that was like a really, really hard fight camp at Fortis. And coach he expected me to go out there and blaze through him, and the game plan went perfect. And in this fight as well, we knew Max was tough. We knew he was going to have a really good cardio. We knew he was going to be hard to put away, so we planned for a hard 3-round fight, and that's what we got. I was happy to technically kickbox as well as I did too.
And I was I mean, you mentioned that you're on a currently 3-0, especially since you've joined the gym. But I was going to ask you, what's kind of the secret to your winning streak? I mean, is it just training at Fortis? Is it maybe changing some things outside of the cage? What's kind of been the secret for you in racking up all these wins in a row?
Yeah, really having Coach Safe there to hold me accountable for the decisions made. I always had the technical ability, but I never really had the discipline or consequence of not following through. So now, with Safe there to really chew me out if I make some riskier decisions, allows me to be more technical and more cerebral in the fight, and he's giving me ways to be able to enforce that technical kickboxing style better than I've ever been able to do it before. And I really feel like I'm coming to my own. I'm super comfortable in that octagon. Octagon experience is a real thing, and man, I'm feeling better and better.
And I believe Fortis, they have a sponsorship for kind of the meal plans. Have you been able to take advantage of that?
So no, my wife is awesome. She helps me. She does all my meal prepping when I'm at home. So no, thankfully I don't really need that.
And so
I've heard great things.
Yeah, for sure. How is it when you have your wife that meal plans? I mean, does she specifically take care of your macros, or is it just she kind of knows what you need to stay healthy and kind of keep your weight in check?
No, I kind of give her a good idea, but she's awesome, and I've been doing this a long time, 13 years now, and I don't have a very hard cut to welterweight, and stay, able to eat enough to get through training and stay in shape, and it's pretty easy. It's pretty, proven system for me.
And so after this fight, what was it like when I assume you turned your phone back on after the fight, you go on social media and all that stuff. What was the reaction? What kind of reactions were you getting from all the fans who can sometimes be a little bit hard on the fighters, even after a great fight?
Man, it was great. I was just talking to my coach at lunch today, and with Max, it's hard for your stock to go up with a loss. And I think Max showing how tough and how good his chin was kind of helped him a little bit. It helped me a lot. That clip of the head kick to the back fist was on UFC's Instagram, and it got almost 3 million views, so I was happy to see that. And man, I love that highlight. Really wish I could have got the finish, but again, I threw everything at him, and it landed flush and technically sound, and still didn't get the finish. I can't complain. There's no what ifs for this fight. I was happy with the performance.
And so what's next for you at this point? You're 3-0, you're riding high off of a great victory in this one. What's next for you at this point?
I really like that Diego Lima fight. He had responded on Twitter as well, and he likes the matchup. He was really respectful. I'm just gonna hopefully pitch the idea to Sean Shelby and get it going early next year. January, February, March would be great.
And that's funny. I was just going to ask you who you wanted next and when we can expect to see you return. I mean, is there an event that you have in mind when you'd like to come back?
I was actually I'm keep checking Tapology every day to see if the UFC releases their schedule for the first and second quarter of next year, and they haven't got it just yet. But so I'm just waiting. I'm waiting to see the dates that open up.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the time, man. I really appreciate it. Congratulations on the win, man. It was a great performance, and we look forward to seeing what's next for you.
Cool. Thanks so much, man.